So with all the superhero movies coming out this year, with 2 out of 3 of them so far being huge hits, how does this one fare? So I just got back from seeing X-Men Apocalypse with one of my best friends. First off, do not listen to the critics on this movie. I loved this movie. It was so much fun. The action scenes were amazing, and the new segment with Quicksilver, that a 2-minute scene he had in Days of Future Past that everyone liked, so they thought, man, we need to do more Quicksilver stuff. And they did, and it was amazing. I had so much fun, had quite a few laughs during that scene. I thought it was amazing. What I mean by don't listen to the critics are just a small number. They don't represent everybody's opinions. Just remember that. They don't represent an entire movie-going audience, or the entire audience at the screening they went to. So X-Men Apocalypse is directed once again by Bryan Singer. He is responsible for starting off the X-Men film franchise, pretty much. He directed the first few X-Men movies, which are great. I love those movies. And then he left the franchise for a while, and look what that got us. But he came back on Days of Future Past, and we got one of the better X-Men movies we've ever had. And then he directed X-Men Apocalypse, the most recent one. And I am happy to say I would be proud to put this next to Days of Future Past. For those of you who don't know, my favorite X-Men movies are First Class and Days of Future Past. Both of those movies I loved. Some of the critiques I've heard of this movie are things such as, like, the first 20 minutes are rather slow, and a lot of the critics weren't willing to wait for things to pick up. They were too quick to judge, in my opinion. But personally, I did not find the first 20 minutes slow at all. I found it really interesting with the visuals. I don't really have any complaints for the effects and CGI in this movie. I thought it was very convincing. It looked really good to me. The one kind of nitpick I have for this movie is that I felt like they were trying really hard to make excuses to show Jennifer Lawrence and not Mystique. But anyway, that's just a small annoyance for me. I could probably understand because, she had to have screen time. She had to show her own face. But I just feel like they did it a little too much. But other than that, I don't really have any complaints with this movie. I deeply enjoyed it. Most of you don't know this, but X-Men, the very first X-Men movie was one of the first superhero movies I ever watched as a kid. So it's kind of near and dear to my heart. The first superhero movies I ever remember watching are like the 1989 Batman and the 2003 Spider-Man and the 1999 X-Men, or 2000 X-Men, because those were like some of the first superhero films I'd ever seen as a kid, and since then, I've just loved them. And once this movie started and I could hear the theme again, I got such chills and a huge flow of nostalgia going through me. It was quite amazing. For my parental section, if your kids have sat through pretty much any other X-Men movie or almost any Marvel movie ever, they'll probably be able to handle this movie. It is about as violent, and there's just as much cursing as you'd expect. It wasn't that much. I really enjoyed this movie, but overall, I highly recommend it. I will give this movie a 9 out of 10. Just for that one slight annoyance it had for me. Overall, it would be a perfect X-Men movie for me if it weren't for that one thing that kind of nagged me. But other than that, I love this movie. Go check it out. I've heard talks about this movie being a flop. Do not let that happen. We don't need another Edge of Tomorrow. That really good movie that just somehow did not do as well as I think it might have deserved. So I'm gonna leave it here. I highly recommend this movie. So have a good night.